Imagine just holding a cheap, totally unadorned gray notebook in your hands.
Just a standard everyday notebook.
Right, exactly. And according to the framework we are exploring today, painting the back of that notebook a vibrant solar orange and tracing a few chaotic, ancient geometric lines on the front cover might actually be more effective for your financial stability than, well, than working the overwhelming majority of your waking hours.
Yeah.
Which I know exactly how that sounds.
It sounds completely absurd to the modern mind.
It really does. But today, we're going to explore a highly unconventional, incredibly specific architecture for manifestation, one that completely bypasses the traditional mechanics of human effort.
And it's a profound shift in perspective. I mean, we are so heavily conditioned, right? We're conditioned to believe that sheer physical endurance is the absolute only legitimate currency for acquiring resources.
It's the only way we're taught to survive.
Exactly. But this framework posits that reality is actually far more malleable and far more responsive to specific frequencies than we could ever really imagine.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because I want to start by acknowledging the reality that most people are actually living in right now.
Oh, absolutely.
The traditional equation we're all taught from the dawn of our lives is it's supposed to be simple. Effort in, stability out.
Right. A clean mathematical transfer.
Yeah, you push a heavy block, it moves forward. You put in your kinetic energy, and your bank account is supposed to reflect that exact symmetrical exchange.
It's supposed to be a balanced equilibrium.
Yeah.
And honestly, that idea is deeply comforting. We desperately want the universe to be strictly fair. We want it visibly categorized, you know.
But then you step into the actual lived experience of modern survival, and,
Well,
that clean equation just completely shatters.
it really does. It falls apart.
I want to paint a picture for you, the listener, because it's a sensation that sits like a heavy stone right behind the ribs.
Yeah.
It's not like paddling a small boat against an oceanic current, because that implies you're at least out in the open water, right? You're going somewhere.
You have a chance at least.
Right. It is far more like running on a treadmill where the speed just keeps incrementally increasing.
Oh, that's a perfect way to describe it.
And the incline keeps rising and your lungs are burning, but the scenery in front of you never, ever changes.
The geometry of your life remains rigidly fixed. No matter how much vital energy you pour into the system, you just remain trapped in the exact same orbit.
Yes. You follow every single rule society handed to you. You stay in your lane, you sacrifice a vast constellation of your personal time, and yet the resources you actually need for true breathing freedom, they remain entirely out of reach.
It's exhausting.
It feels as though you are continually pouring water into a vessel that is fundamentally cracked at the base. You know, the water just vanishes into the soil before it ever reaches the overflow.
And that universal exhaustion is, I argue it's perhaps the most defining psychological weight of our era. What people are encountering is an invisible ceiling.
The invisible ceiling, yeah.
Right. And the profound confusion arises when we finally realize that raw brute force effort and just conventional linear logic often fail completely to bridge the gap between merely surviving and actually thriving.
Because we're taught that if we just run faster on the treadmill, eventually we'll reach a new destination.
But the treadmill isn't designed to take you anywhere.
Exactly. It's bolted to the floor.
Precisely. And here's the core issue that this framework addresses. From our earliest moments of awareness, we are trained very effectively to operate purely within the rigid mechanics of the visible world.
We're totally boxed in.
Yeah, we're conditioned to view reality as entirely solid, purely mechanical, and completely devoid of any underlying responsive currents. We're taught to be passive recipients of our circumstances.
Like we're just objects being acted upon by the universe.
Exactly.
Right.
Rather than active architects capable of actually shaping the flow of our own reality.
And this is the exact threshold where our exploration today begins. We were going to look at how to step completely outside the sterile bounds of conventional effort. We're not talking about finding a slightly better savings account here or, negotiating a marginal increase in your wage.
No, not at all.
We are looking at an architecture designed to command the unseen underlying currents of prosperity using streamlined functional principles.
It's really about shifting from the role of the exhausted runner to the role of the engineer who actually programs the machine. It requires a fundamental restructuring of how you perceive cause and effect.
So let's lay down the bedrock. If we are completely abandoning the idea that pure physical labor is the only way to generate a harvest of resources, what actually replaces it? Like, how do we interface with these unseen currents?
Well, there is a foundational architecture to this practice. It doesn't rely on vague wishing or chaotic
I
hope.
know, crossing your finger.
Exactly. It requires three absolute unyielding pillars to successfully direct the invisible forces of abundance.
Okay, what are they?
First, a crystal clear intent. Second, a precise methodology. And third, a highly specific alchemical state of mind.
Intent, methodology, state of mind.
Right. When you align those three pillars, the surrounding reality is compelled to reorganize itself around your directive.
And here's where it gets really interesting to me. When people hear about methodologies for commanding unseen forces, their minds immediately go to the cinematic.
So always.
They picture gathering exotic materials under a specific celestial alignment or retreating to a secluded cave to devote an endless passage of eras to silent meditation.
Yeah, the robes and the incense.
Right. They expect it to require an immense amount of esoteric knowledge.
And honestly, the overwhelming majority of traditional practices are, unfortunately, burdened by endless theatrical debris.
Theatrical debris, I like that.
Well, it is. They demand flawless adherence to complex dogmatic rituals that, frankly, serve only to intimidate the practitioner.
But what is striking about the framework we're discussing is its brutal pragmatism. It strips away all of that.
All of it.
It requires almost nothing in terms of mundane currency. It requires a minuscule fraction of your daily time. It's designed for a person living in the modern, chaotic world who needs their reality to shift right now.
The elegance really lies in its material simplicity. You do not need to construct a temple. You just need to construct a localized physical anchor for your intention.
Okay, let's talk about that anchor, because this is the practical cornerstone of the entire endeavor. We're talking about creating a physical vessel,
Right.
and the framework is incredibly specific about how this is done.
Because the ethereal must be grounded. The invisible has to be given a tangible surface upon which to manifest in the physical realm.
So the methodology begins with taking a simple, completely mundane notebook, like a cheap object you could acquire anywhere.
The cheaper the better, almost.
Yeah, but through a series of deliberate actions, you alter its fundamental nature. The visual parameters are not suggestions, they are exact.
Highly specific.
The front cover must be painted entirely in the color of a dense, storm-bound gray cloud. Just a flat, unyielding gray. And the back cover must radiate with the vibrant, undeniable orange of a solar flare.
Gray and orange. And no lines, no text, no remaining logos from the manufacturer. It has to be purified into these two distinct, solid fields of color.
Now, I have to push back here because this is the exact moment the modern, hyper-rational mind hits the brakes hard.
Oh, of course it does.
If this entire philosophy is about the power of consciousness commanding unseen currents, why do I need to go to the store, buy paint, and spend an afternoon doing arts and crafts with a cheap notebook?
Right?
Why does the universe care if I have a gray and orange book sitting on my desk? Can't I just hold the intention internally?
That is the most common point of resistance, by far. And it stems from a profound misunderstanding of human psychology and physical resonance.
Okay, break that down for me.
What's fascinating here is the energetic bridge that physical creation builds.
Yeah.
We are not purely ethereal beings, right? We are bound in dense matter.
We have bodies.
Exactly. When you engage your hands, when you smell the paint, when you spend dedicated time layering color over a mundane object, you are committing a literal act of translation.
A translation from thought to matter.
Yes, you are dragging a pure, formless thought out of the invisible realm and forcing it to take up space in heavy physical reality.
You're making the invisible visible. But, and I have to ask, why specifically gray and orange? Is it just arbitrary? Like, could I use blue and green?
Absolutely not. It's
Oh.
not arbitrary at all. In esoteric color theory, gray acts as the ultimate neutral ground. It's the color of the dense storm cloud before the lightning strikes.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
It represents unformed potential, a blank slate that grounds erratic energy. Orange, conversely, is deeply tied to solar energy, kinetic expansion, and rapid action.
So by placing gray on the front and orange on the back,
You are visually constructing a battery. You have a grounding terminal and an action terminal.
that makes perfect sense. It's not arts and crafts. It's literally building a circuit board. But going back to the physical act of painting it, why is that better than just visualizing the circuit board in my head?
Because mental intentions are incredibly fragile.
They really are.
If you merely hold an intention in your mind, it is entirely subject to the chaotic, swirling winds of your daily life. A mental desire for prosperity is instantly overwritten the moment your phone rings with an unexpected bill or you get cut off in traffic.
It just evaporates.
It's fleeting. But when you craft an object with your own hands for a singular, highly specific purpose, you create an undeniable physical anchor.
It literally sits there on your desk staring back at you.
Exactly. Every single time your eyes pass over that storm gray cover, your nervous system remembers exactly why it exists. It totally bypasses the conscious mind's endless chatter and strikes directly at the subconscious.
It's like a physical reminder to your brain.
Think of a magnifying glass. Sunlight is abundant, and it warms the earth generally, right? But it does not start a fire until it is forced through a convex lens and concentrated onto a single, solitary point.
The physical vessel is the lens.
The vessel is your lens. It takes your scattered, diffused desires for stability desires that are usually clouded by a dense fog of fear and doubt, and concentrates them into a solitary, undeniable focal point in the material realm.
So reality is basically forced to take your intention seriously because you took it seriously enough to physically alter your environment to accommodate it.
Exactly. The physical effort, no matter how small, is a down payment of belief.
A down payment of belief. I love that.
Hmm.
Okay, so we have our physical vessel, the gray front, the solar orange back, but a blank vessel is essentially just an empty room waiting to be furnished.
Right, it needs the programming.
Now we have to look at the architecture that actually calls the currents into the room. We introduce the language of symbols.
The visual vocabulary of the unseen.
The framework requires placing specific ancient geometric seals, commonly known in esoteric traditions, as sigils onto the vessel. And these are not just arbitrary doodles.
No, they are highly specific conduits.
Right. On the gray front cover, you place a seal that acts as a direct conduit to a primordial force of abundance. An intelligence whose sole function since the dawn of the cycle is the gathering and distribution of wealth. And then on the orange back cover, you place a completely different seal. This one is attuned to the lunar sphere, harmonizing with the shifting, pulling tides of manifestation.
So you're creating a closed, energetic loop. The front reaches out to the primordial source of the resource, and the back utilizes the cyclical drawing power of the lunar tides to pull that resource firmly into your localized gravity.
It's brilliant. But let me tell you, as a beginner, when you first look at these geometric seals, the intimidation factor is massive.
Oh, I'm sure. They look totally alien.
They really do. They do not look like anything we use in modern communication. They are a chaotic tangle of intersecting lines, strange curves, and jagged edges. They look like a dialect of creation that predates modern civilization.
Yeah, they carry an ancient weight to them.
And my immediate thought when looking at something like this is, if my hand slips, if I draw this line slightly too thick, or if the angle is off by a fraction of a degree, I am going to completely ruin the circuit.
And that anxiety is a leftover remnant of the dogmatic, punitive traditions we discussed earlier.
The fear of getting it wrong.
Right. It is the fear that some cosmic school teacher is going to grade your ritual and fail you for poor penmanship. But I can reassure you, artistic perfection is entirely, fundamentally unnecessary here.
Wait, really? So an imperfect, shaky drawing still carries weight? How? If it's a circuit, doesn't it need to be perfectly precise?
The power of the symbol does not reside in flawless museum-quality calligraphy.
Yeah.
The symbol itself, ink on paper, is entirely inert without the human operator.
Okay.
Think of the symbol as a complex cosmic lockpick. The geometric shape is the tool, but your focused attention, your absolute sincerity of intent is the hand that actually turns the lock inside the door.
It's the human element that provides the electricity.
Precisely. Tracing over those ancient lines with a dark instrument, slowly and deliberately, creates a profound somatic connection. As your eyes follow the strange geometry and your hand mimics the erratic curves, your brain is actively internalizing a pattern of power that has been utilized for a vast passage of eras.
It's recognizing the shape.
Human brains are obsessed with recognizing familiar patterns. By forcing your brain to engage with an abstract nonlinear geometry, you temporarily short-circuit the logical doubting mind.
You slip past the security guard of the rational brain.
Exactly. You are aligning your personal neural pathways with a very old, very deep groove in the universe. The sincerity of that deliberate physical effort is what charges the seal, not the mathematical perfection of the ink.
So it's about the focus, not the art skills.
You could print the symbol out on a sheet of paper and simply trace heavily over it with a dark pencil, pouring your absolute focus into the friction of the lead against the paper. That physical act of tracing is the ignition.
I really love that framing. Sincerity is the hand that turns the lock. It completely democratizes the process. It does.
It removes the barrier of needing to be a master scholar just to interact with your own reality.
You didn't need a degree to change your life.
Right. So we have the physical vessel, we have the geometric locks placed upon it, but to truly activate this localized beacon
Yeah.
to really send the signal out into the deep water, the architecture requires us to use sound.
Yes.
We have to engage the power of somatic resonance, words of power.
The vibration of creation. Because sound is arguably the most primary, immediate force we can generate from our physical bodies that visibly alters the environment around us.
The methodology details the verbalization of highly specific ancient syllables to charge the vessel. And the way it describes this vocalization, it is definitely not about reading words off a page like you were ordering a coffee.
No, not at all. It is a deeply physiological act.
Let me offer an analogy here. Imagine you're standing in the center of a massive, utterly silent, rocky canyon.
Okay.
If you whisper a polite request, the canyon absorbs it instantly. The air remains perfectly still. Nothing changes.
But if you hold a massive, heavy iron tuning fork and you strike it violently against a solid boulder, that low thrumming vibration doesn't just make a sound, it physically alters the atmospheric pressure.
You can feel it in your chest.
You can feel the wave in your teeth. The air itself is forced to carry that heavy frequency. This framework isn't asking you to whisper a polite prayer. It is demanding that you generate a physical vibration that actively reorganizes the atmosphere around you.
That analogy perfectly captures the mechanics. The delivery of this vocalization is critical and requires you to completely abandon your modern sense of decorum.
Which is hard for people.
It's very hard. In our daily lives, we are conditioned to speak from our throats using thin, polite voices designed specifically not to disturb our neighbors or draw attention to ourselves.
Don't rock the boat.
Right. But these syllables must not originate from the vocal cords alone. They must rumble from the absolute deep center of the diaphragm.
It has to have sheer physical mass to it.
It must possess profound density. When you vibrate these syllables, it should feel as though you are physically giving birth to the sound. It should be a resonant, guttural roar that you imagine traveling outward, piercing through the walls of your structure, cutting through the dense atmosphere, and echoing out to the furthest edges of the expanding universe.
You are physically striking the cosmic tuning fork.
Yes.
But let me be the voice of the listener for a second here.
Go ahead.
Let's say I live in a dense urban environment. I have a roommate in the next room and neighbors above and below me. If I stand in my bedroom and let out a guttural, diaphragmatic roar in an ancient tongue, my roommate is going to call for medical intervention.
That is a very valid concern.
Does this framework address the sheer absurdity of doing this in modern living conditions?
It is a highly practical concern, yes. If your environment does not permit a full volume vocalization, the framework does not demand that you get affected.
Good to know.
The key is the resonance, not necessarily the decibel level. You can vibrate the syllables at a lower volume, provided the sound still originates from the deep diaphragm and carries that heavy, buzzing frequency.
So it's about the physical vibration.
Exactly. You can perform it as a resonant, forceful hum. The critical factor is that your physical body must vibrate with the intention.
It's the feeling of the vibration in your chest cavity, not how loud it is in the room. But I mean, even doing it quietly feels strange. It feels incredibly theatrical.
It is theatrical. The framework actually points toward a surprising parallel to explain this. It notes that the cinematic depictions we see in modern media, a character speaking with a voice that seems to drop 3 octaves and shake the dust from the ceiling, that theatrical exaggeration is actually pointing toward a functional, energetic truth.
You have to fully lean into the performance.
Yes, because generating that kind of resonant wave requires a massive psychological shift. You must drop the heavy veil of mundane self-consciousness.
You can't be embarrassed.
You cannot be worried about looking foolish. You cannot be thinking about yourself as a fragile, exhausted human stressed about utility bills. In the exact moment of vibrating those syllables, you must fully, completely embody the role of a creator.
Wow.
You assume the magnitude of a being who has the inherent, undeniable right to command the geometry of reality.
That is a massive pivot, moving from the passive observer hoping for a break to the resonant commander demanding a shift.
It changes everything.
Which transitions us perfectly into the next phase. Once we have the vessel, we have traced the geometry and we are vibrating the atmosphere. We are initiating a direct dialogue with these unseen currents. We are stepping into the architecture of command.
Right.
And there is a very delicate, highly specific interpersonal stance required here.
The managerial stance. And I have to say, this is where the overwhelming majority of people who attempt to shape reality completely fail, because they unwittingly bring all of their human baggage and hierarchical trauma right into the interaction.
Let me represent the common instinct here. If I am accepting the premise that I am dealing with unseen, primordial forces of abundance forces that have existed for a passage of eras completely beyond human comprehension, shouldn't my approach be one of immense, trembling humility?
That's what most people think.
Shouldn't I be begging them for a...
Because the universe does not experience pity. It operates as an uncompromising mirror of your resonant state. If you approach these forces as a beggar, weeping and pleading for scraps, you are vibrating exclusively with the frequency of absolute lack, desperation, and powerlessness.
You're broadcasting I have nothing.
And the unseen currents will simply reflect that exact reality back to you. They will leave you begging, because begging is the reality your frequency is insisting upon.
Wow. And what about the conqueror, the aggressive dominator? Why can't I just bully the universe into submission?
Because aggression stems entirely from fear. You only seek to aggressively dominate that which you secretly fear will overwhelm you.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
It is combative, highly frictional frequency. These forces are not your enemies, nor are they your slaves. If we connect this to the bigger picture, we see that these primordial currents of abundance are simply there to perform a function.
They're just a force of nature.
They are akin to gravity or thermodynamics. You do not beg gravity to keep your feet on the ground, and you do not scream aggressively at a fire to boil your water. You simply utilize their inherent nature.
So what is the correct archetype? How do I speak to gravity?
The ideal archetype is that of a highly effective, deeply respected manager speaking to a master artisan.
A manager and an artisan. That implies a relationship of deep mutual respect, but with incredibly clear direction.
Exactly. Imagine a project manager walking into the workshop of a master carpenter. The manager does not possess the specific skills to carve the wood that is entirely the artisan's domain.
Right.
The manager does not fall to their knees and beg the carpenter to please build a chair, nor does the manager threaten the carpenter with physical violence if the chair isn't perfect.
Both of those approaches would make the carpenter think the manager is totally insane.
Precisely. The manager simply approaches the workbench, outlines the precise specifications of the required chair, provides the deadline, and commands the work to begin with polite, unwavering authority.
There is no doubt in the manager's mind that the artisan will perform the task.
None. It is a professional certainty.
You command these unseen forces politely, but with a spine of absolute steel. You are stating an objective fact about what is going to happen next in your shared reality.
It removes all emotional volatility from the request. It is simply business.
That reframing is incredible. It strips away all the moral baggage. But, speaking of baggage, the framework addresses another massive point of friction.
Yes, the moral aspect.
While we maintain this calm, authoritative managerial stance, there is a specific emotional fuel required to power the command, and this completely upends how our society usually thinks about who deserves wealth.
Totally upends it.
We are universally taught that reality rewards spiritual purity, selflessness, or moral superiority.
The concept of deserving is an entirely human societal construct. It is completely functionally irrelevant to the mechanics of manifestation.
The methodology is brutally honest about this. The primary fuel for this interaction is not moral righteousness. These unseen forces do not care at all if you intend to use the requested harvest to fund a vital charitable endeavor, or if you plan to spend every last drop of it on a frivolous luxury item for your own sheer personal enjoyment.
They don't have human morals.
The forces do not judge the moral weight of your desire. Sincerity of desire is the absolute only metric that matters.
If you initiate the operation to acquire a sum of wealth, to buy a high-end luxury vehicle, but you secretly feel a deep societal guilt about it, and you try to mentally convince the universe that you will give a portion to charity just to justify the request, you have introduced a massive static contradiction into your signal.
You are lying to the system.
Yes. The system requires pure, unadulterated, sincere desire to lock onto a target.
So you must fiercely own your desire, no matter how mundane, selfish, or luxurious it is. Sincerity over morality. But beyond owning the desire, there is an ultimate secret to this interaction, a specific type of psychological currency that acts as the final seal on the contract, and that is the concept of preemptive gratitude.
This is where the framework moves from functional mechanics into profound psychological alchemy. This is what separates actual manifestation from mere wishful thinking.
Let's break this down carefully. In a normal human experience, we experience gratitude after a transaction is entirely complete.
Chronologically, yes.
Someone hands you a gift, your brain registers the physical object, you feel the biochemical relief and joy, and you say thank you. But this framework demands that you generate that exact profound feeling of joyous relief before the result has physically manifested in your environment.
You must manufacture the echo before the sound is ever made.
Exactly. Why? How is faking gratitude the exact emotional currency that ensures the work is completed?
Let's return to our analogy of the manager and the artisan. The most highly effective managers, the ones who inspire flawless execution from their teams, do something very specific.
What do they do?
They warmly, genuinely thank the artisan for a job perfectly done before the deadline has even arrived. They say, "I know this project is complex, but I am so deeply grateful for the incredible skill you are bringing to this. Thank you for handling it so perfectly."
When you hear that as an artisan, you are locked in. You cannot fail, because the success has already been established as an undeniable reality in the manager's mind. You are just fulfilling an existing prophecy.
On a cosmic level, feeling preemptive gratitude effectively tricks the very fabric of reality. Time is far more fluid and malleable than our mechanical clocks suggest.
Right.
When you generate the authentic physiological feeling of profound, joyous relief, the exact physical sensation of holding the requested wealth in your hands, you are sending a massive energetic signal into the universe, declaring that the event has already occurred.
And the universe has to respond to that signal.
The unseen forces, acting as the artisan, immediately move to resolve the paradox. If the absolute gratitude already exists in the environment, the physical manifestation must be generated to balance the equation. The universe pulls the future reality into your present moment to justify the physical emotion your body is currently experiencing.
You are literally using the gravity of gratitude to pull a future coordinate toward you.
Exactly.
And this is a massive looming, but this brings us to what the framework identifies as the single greatest hurdle in any act of reality shaping, the great paradox.
The trap.
Because generating and maintaining that preemptive gratitude is incredibly agonizingly difficult when you are dealing with the harsh, unforgiving realities of material survival, the trap of desperation.
In many esoteric traditions, this is referred to as the lust for result. It is the absolute destroyer of worlds when it comes to esoteric practice.
Let's define exactly what this looks like. You perform the operation flawlessly, you construct the physical vessel, you trace the geometry, you vibrate the syllables, you issue the managerial command, and you genuinely feel that flash of preemptive gratitude. You did everything right. And then you have to walk away. But human survival instinct kicks in. You desperately, anxiously yearn for the outcome. You start obsessing, when will it arrive? How will it arrive? You start frantically checking your bank accounts multiple times a day.
The human mind begins to claw frantically at the veil of reality, demanding immediate, visible evidence.
It is exactly like planting a highly valuable, rare seed in the dark soil, carefully watering it, and then going out into the garden every single morning and frantically digging it up just to see if the roots have started to grow yet.
Which kills the plant.
The very act of anxious checking, the frantic exposure of the fragile roots to the harsh light of your doubt, utterly destroys the subterranean process.
It is psychological agony, and it is a paradox of the highest order. We only initiate this monumental action because we desperately, urgently need a shift in our reality.
Right, we're doing it because we need the resources.
Exactly. The resources are depleted, the societal pressure is immense, the threat of ruin feels imminent, the need is entirely real. But here is the brutal, uncompromising mechanics of the unseen currents. The universe interprets that desperate, frantic yearning not as a valid request for more, but as an absolute, undeniable affirmation of lack.
This is critical for the listener to understand. Why does yearning equal lack?
Because you do not yearn desperately for something you already solidly possess. If you are sitting comfortably in a chair, you do not frantically, anxiously yearn for a chair. You simply occupy it.
Right.
Therefore, when you emanate frantic longing, you are broadcasting a massive, deafening physiological signal that says, "I do not have this. I am fundamentally separated from my desire."
And the universe acts as the mirror.
Exactly. The universe reflects that exact signal back to you. It says, "Agreed. You do not have this. We will maintain the separation." Frantic longing effectively, instantaneously short-circuits the energetic machinery you just spent so much deliberate time building.
It's devastating because it feels so entirely natural to worry. Our biology is wired to panic when resources are low.
It's survival.
So the obvious question arises, and this is where the lion's share of people throw their hands up in absolute despair. How on earth is a normal, stressed human being supposed to simply turn off their fundamental survival instinct?
You can't just turn it off.
Especially when the need for resources isn't just a luxury, but a pressing, immediate physical necessity. You can't just pretend you don't need the shelter or the food.
And you shouldn't pretend. Pretending is a fragile, transparent psychological mask that the universe sees right through instantly. The framework does not ask you to suppress the desire or to become some emotionless, enlightened stone.
That's a relief.
Suppression requires an immense amount of mental energy that is vastly better utilized elsewhere. Instead of suppression, the framework reveals an alchemical solution.
Yeah.
You do not suppress the anxiety, you actively transmute it.
Transmutation. Changing the base metal of sheer panic into the gold of fulfillment. How does that actually work in practice? Like, how do I do that on a random Tuesday afternoon when the panic suddenly sets in and my chest gets tight?
It requires a conscious, active martial art of the mind. It is rooted in nervous system regulation. Whenever the frantic thought arises, and it absolutely will arise, where's the wealth? Why hasn't it arrived? Did I perform the operation wrong? Am I doomed? You must catch that thought in midair.
Catch it before it spirals.
Exactly. The exact moment you feel that familiar knot of cortisol and anxiety in your stomach, you must consciously, aggressively pivot your mind entirely away from the absence of the wealth. You must immediately submerge your consciousness into a memory of pure, unadulterated joy or profound relief.
Hey, a memory completely unrelated to the wealth I'm asking for.
It can be entirely unrelated. In fact, it is often better if it is. It can be a vivid memory of a perfect afternoon in the sun, the feeling of laughing and until your lungs physically ache with a friend, or the profound sinking relief of narrowly avoiding a car accident.
So any memory that works.
Any memory that immediately floods your biological nervous system with the chemical signature of joy, profound safety, and deep relief.
So you use a completely unrelated memory to biohack your own nervous system. You force a state break.
Precisely. You flood the physiological system with the emotion of fulfillment, and while you are bathed in that borrowed emotion of pure, undeniable relief, you briefly, gently merge the thought of your intended wealth into that feeling. You mentally fuse the two together. You trick your nervous system into experiencing the profound physical relief of having already received the requested bounty.
You decouple the thought of the wealth from the feeling of panic, and you violently attach it to the feeling of joy.
Yes. You are essentially rewiring the neural association in real time. By doing this repeatedly, every single time the panic arises, you gradually replace the toxic frequency of anxious waiting with the warm, settled, undeniable glow of fulfillment.
You stop broadcasting the signal, I lack this, and you start constantly broadcasting the signal, I am so deeply relieved this is already handled.
And the universe recognizes the new, stabilized frequency, and the manifestation is allowed to proceed entirely unhindered.
That is a brilliant psychological mechanism. It gives the practitioner something active and empowering to do with their anxiety, rather than just suffering through it helplessly.
It's very empowering.
So let's assume we master this mental martial art. We maintain the managerial stance. We successfully transmute the lust for result into preemptive gratitude through nervous system regulation. We are now in the phase of navigating the mechanics of arrival.
The final stage.
The resources are in motion, but here, the framework issues a massive caution about how we expect the delivery to actually occur, and it specifically addresses the great human fantasy, the folly of the lottery.
Ah, yes. The universal desire to shatter the vast machinery of random probability in a single, effortless stroke.
Everyone wants it.
It is the absolute most common human desire when first encountering these frameworks of manifestation.
Everyone thinks, look, if I have a magical geometric seal and ancient words of power, why would I ask for a modest influx of resources just to pay my current bills when I can just demand the winning numbers to the largest global jackpot and never ever think about money again for the rest of my life?
It is a perfectly understandable human logic.
Yeah.
But it fundamentally misunderstands how energetic efficiency actually operates within the universe.
Explain that. Why does the methodology specifically caution against targeting games of absolute chance?
Because you must consider the sheer magnitude of the resistance you are attempting to overcome. A massive global lottery is a matrix of astronomical improbability.
It's designed to be impossible.
Right. You have a vast constellation of other human minds, millions upon millions of them, all heavily emotionally invested, all broadcasting their own desperate, intense desire for those exact same numerical outcomes. The energetic gridlock across that probability matrix is immense.
So you're fighting millions of other people's desires.
While reality can technically be shaped in any direction, pitting your singular, localized will against a global, deeply entrenched matrix of probability is a profoundly inefficient use of your energetic capacity.
It's like trying to stop a speeding freight train by blowing on it, rather than just redirecting a small, quiet stream to water your own garden.
Exactly. The unseen forces operate much like water. They invariably seek the path of absolute least resistance to fulfill your command. A lottery win requires moving mountains of entrenched probability.
This raises an important question. If we shouldn't force the universe to deliver the wealth through one highly specific, deeply improbable mechanism like a lottery, how strict should we be about how the resources arrive at all?
That's a great question.
If I am the manager, shouldn't I be a good manager and demand that it comes specifically as a raise from my current boss?
The absolute answer is you must be utterly, completely flexible regarding the avenue of arrival. Rigidity is the profound enemy of manifestation.
Why? If I am the manager, shouldn't I tell the artisan exactly how to deliver the chair?
You tell the artisan you need a chair. You do not arrogantly dictate the exact route the delivery truck must take through the city to reach your house.
That's a great point.
If you rigidly demand that your prosperity only comes in the form of a direct wage increase at your current place of employment, you have effectively placed a massive boulder over the lion's share of possible avenues the universe could easily use.
Because maybe your boss just won't do it.
What if your company's financial budget is entirely locked? What if your boss is fundamentally personally resistant to you? You are forcing the universe to fight a brutal uphill battle against human free will and corporate structure.
You blind yourself to a constellation of other, easier avenues.
Yes. The unseen currents might find it infinitely easier to manifest a massive, entirely unexpected discount on a vital purchase you are about to make. Or they might cause a long-forgotten debt to be suddenly repaid. Or an obscure asset you own might suddenly increase in value.
Which is the exact same thing, functionally.
To the cold mathematics of your survival,
Yeah.
a massive reduction in a mandatory expense is, in absolute essence, the exact same thing as receiving that exact amount in raw currency. The net gain to your life is identical.
Wow.
By remaining utterly flexible, you allow the universe to slip the wealth into your reality through the path of absolute least resistance.
The wealth will find a way, but only if you leave all the doors and windows unlocked.
Exactly.
Now, even with all of this understood intellectually, the framework acknowledges a very real, very stubborn human problem, the internal skeptic.
Well, the skeptic is loud.
The loud voice in your head that says, this is all just confirmation bias, this
Yeah.
is psychological nonsense, I'm drawing lines on a notebook and humming in my bedroom.
And everyone feels that at first.
And the framework offers a brilliant, almost playful tactical maneuver for those whose internal skepticism is actively blocking their energetic progress, the strategy of the microscopic victory.
This is perhaps the single most vital technique for the modern hyper-rational practitioner who struggles with deeply ingrained doubt.
I compare this to needing to prime the pump of an old, dry water well. You know there is a massive reservoir of water deep down, but the mechanism is filled with air.
If you just pull the handle.
Nothing happens. If you just yank on the handle with all your might, absolutely nothing happens. You actually have to pour a tiny, solitary cup of water down the mechanism to create the necessary suction to pull up the massive reservoir below.
That is a perfect analogy.
The microscopic victory is that tiny cup of water. You start your journey into this architecture not by requesting a life-altering harvest of wealth, but by requesting an almost laughably microscopic grain of value.
You request a solitary spark, a specific tiny coin found on the sidewalk, or a fractional refund on a completely mundane purchase, something so incredibly tiny, so utterly insignificant to your overall survival that your heavily armored ego doesn't even bother to muster its defenses of doubt.
The rational ego looks at the request for a solitary, insignificant coin and says, who cares? That won't change our lives. I won't even bother being anxious about whether this works or not.
Exactly. By aiming so low, you perfectly bypass the lust for result. Because you truly do not care if you find the coin or not, there's absolutely no desperation. Because there is no desperation, there's no physiological signal of lack.
So the signal gets through cleanly.
The energetic channel remains completely, flawlessly clear.
And then the obscure, tiny manifestation arrives perfectly out of the blue. You find the exact requested coin in a place that makes absolutely no logical sense. What happens then?
When that microscopic victory undeniably arrives, it acts as a depth charge in your subconscious mind. It shatters your internal resistance. It proves, with empirical evidence, that the mechanism functions.
It breaks the skepticism.
It proves to your rational brain that the physical vessel, the syllables, the geometry, and the managerial command actually physically altered the fabric of reality.
The pump is officially primed. You have built a scaffold of belief.
From that tiny seed of absolute certainty, you can then begin to aggressively cultivate a much larger harvest. Because the next time you initiate the operation for a vastly more substantial resource and the familiar doubt tries to rise in your chest, you can point directly to that microscopic victory.
You have proof.
You can say to your ego, we already proved the architecture is sound. We know the machine works. You steadily, systematically expand the perimeter of what you believe is physically possible until you are commanding life-altering shifts in your reality without a shadow of a doubt.
That is a profound, highly practical progression. We have covered an immense amount of ground in this exploration today. Let's synthesize this journey.
Let's do it.
We started at the very beginning of this conversation by acknowledging the heavy, exhausting reality of feeling entirely at the mercy of our financial circumstances. We explored the feeling of being trapped on that endless treadmill, believing that only raw, increasingly punishing physical suffering could yield the resources we need to survive.
We were operating under the heavy illusion of mechanical isolation. We believed we were separated from the environment.
But now we have completely deconstructed that illusion. We understand the highly specific mechanics of building a physical focal point, dragging pure intention into the heavy material world, using the neutral potential of gray and the kinetic action of solar orange.
We grounded it.
We have learned how to bypass the conscious mind with the visual anchor of geometry. We have learned to command those unseen currents using the somatic resonance of diaphragmatic sound, physically striking the cosmic tuning fork.
And we have discovered the delicate, unwavering balance of the managerial stance, ensuring we are neither beggars nor conquerors.
And crucially, we have explored the absolute necessity of transmuting the desperate lust for result into the profound alchemy of preemptive gratitude. Using our own nervous system to hijack our reality, we have learned how to prime the pump with a microscopic victory.
The overarching, undeniable theme of this entire synthesis is agency.
Agency.
Taking active control of the narrative of your life. Demanding that the environment respond to your focused, cultivated will is not an unnatural act. It is not an esoteric aberration. It is, in fact, your fundamental, inherent right as a conscious, localized node of energy in this universe.
You're not just a victim of circumstance.
You are not a helpless victim of the architecture. You are a master builder who simply forgot they held the blueprints all along. But this knowledge, no matter how profoundly we have discussed it, only holds weight when it is boldly, consistently applied in the physical realm.
To you, the listener. The universe you inhabit is not a rigid, sterile, unyielding cage of purely mechanical cause and effect. It is a highly responsive, deeply sensitive tapestry that is actively waiting for your specific resonant vibration. It is waiting for you to step off the treadmill and assume the managerial stance.
It is waiting for your clear, unwavering command.
I want to leave you with a lingering thought to ponder as you step back into your day, as you look at the mundane objects around you and the circumstances you currently find yourself heavily entrenched in. We have focused entirely on using this specific architecture to rewrite the material circumstances of your financial reality.
The material side of things.
But consider the sheer magnitude of the principles we have discussed. If you possess the inherent mechanical architecture to rewrite the physical circumstances of your own resources, what other assumed boundaries in your life, your relationships, your creative potentials, the very vitality of your physical body, are nothing more than fragile systemic illusions waiting to be commanded away.